The accidental confession. Some mistakes change everything. One email. One moment of weakness. One click that rewrites your entire world. The characters: Daniela Rivers, 26 years old. Marketing coordinator with messy auburn curls she never quite tames. A coffee addiction she refuses to acknowledge. And a terrible habit of talking to herself when stressed. She's brilliant with campaigns. Hopeless with office politics and completely, hopelessly infatuated with someone she shouldn't be. Nathan Cross, 38. The new chief marketing officer who walked into Sterling Media 3 months ago and turned every head in the building. Sharp jawline, piercing gray eyes, expensive cologne, and a smile that could melt glaciers. Professional to a fault, respected by everyone, and utterly unaware of the chaos he causes just by existing. The office was silent except for the hum of Daniela's computer and the distant whoosh of the cleaning crew's vacuum down the hall. It was past midnight on a Thursday, and she was drowning in spreadsheets for the quarterly presentation. Her desk looked like a tornado had hit it, empty coffee cups forming a small city, sticky notes plastered everywhere with frantic reminders, and her blazer thrown over her chair like she'd surrendered hours ago. "Just finish the revenue projections and you can sleep," she muttered, pushing her glasses up her nose for the 100th time. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, numbers blurring together as exhaustion settled into her bones. The elevator chimed. Daniela froze, her hands hovering over the keys. Who would be here at this hour? Security made rounds at 11. She was supposed to be alone. Footsteps echoed through the empty office, confident, deliberate. Male. Then she saw him. Nathan Cross emerged from the corridor like he'd stepped out of a magazine shoot. His charcoal suit was still perfectly pressed despite the late hour, though he'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms that had no business looking that good. His dark hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his fingers through it, and those gray eyes locked onto her with an intensity that made her stomach flip. "Daniela," he said, his voice that low rumble that did unreasonable things to her pulse. "Burning the midnight oil again?" She shot to her feet so fast she nearly knocked over her latest coffee cup. "Mr. Cross, I didn't know anyone else was still here." "Nathan," he corrected gently, moving closer. "I've told you when it's just us, Nathan is fine, just us." Those 2 words sent heat rushing through her body. "I had some contracts to review," he continued, leaning against the edge of her desk with casual grace. "Didn't expect to find anyone else playing the workaholic game." "The presentation is Monday," Daniela explained, tucking a rebellious curl behind her ear. "I want everything perfect before the review meeting." He studied her with those impossible eyes, and she felt suddenly exposed, like he could see right through her professional mask to the nervousness underneath. "You always stay this late when there's a deadline." "Only when I care about the outcome." Something flickered in his expression. "Approval? Amusement? That's why your campaigns consistently outperform everyone else's." He picked up one of her marketing mock-ups, examining it with genuine interest. "You actually give a damn." The praise shouldn't have affected her this much, but coming from him it felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Thank you," she managed, her cheeks warming. "That means a lot coming from you." "It's just the truth." He set down the mock-up and straightened. "Don't work too late, Daniela. The company needs you sharp, not exhausted." Then he did something unexpected. He reached out and gently adjusted her crooked nameplate on the desk, his fingers brushing against hers for half a second. The contact was brief, innocent, probably meaningless. It sent electricity shooting up her arm. "Good night," he said softly and walked away, leaving behind only the fading scent of his cologne and Daniela's rapidly beating heart. She dropped back into her chair the moment he was out of sight, pressing her palms to her flushed cheeks. "Get it together," she whispered fiercely.
"He's your boss, your boss."
This is so inappropriate. But her heart wasn't listening. 2 hours later, the presentation was finally done. Daniela saved the file, stretched her aching back, and permitted herself a moment of satisfaction. It was good. Really good. The projections were solid. The creative concepts were fresh, and everything was formatted perfectly. She opened her email to send it to her work friend Rachel for a quick proofread before the Monday meeting. Rachel always caught the tiny errors Daniela's exhausted brain missed. But then, sitting there in the glow of her monitor at 2 a.m, something inside her snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the lingering warmth from Nathan's attention. Maybe it was months of suppressed feelings finally demanding release. Her fingers started typing before her common sense could stop them. She created a new document. Just a vent, she told herself. Just getting it out of her system. Something to clear her head so she could stop obsessing and focus on actual work. Nobody would ever see it. Nathan Cross, you are a problem. A 6-foot-tall, impeccably dressed problem who smells like cedar and something expensive I can't identify. Every time you walk past my desk, my brain stops functioning. Every time you smile at me, I forget how to form complete sentences. Every time you say my name in that voice, I imagine things that would definitely violate HR policies. I want to know if your shoulders feel as solid as they look. I want to run my hands through that perfectly styled hair and mess it up completely. I want to pull that tie loose with my teeth and see what you look like when that professional mask finally cracks. I want you to push me against the wall of your office and kiss me until I can't remember my own name. But I'm just a marketing coordinator who's too scared to even make eye contact in meetings. So I'll keep pretending I don't notice when you look at me. Keep pretending my heart doesn't race when you're nearby. Keep pretending this is all professional while I fantasize about extremely unprofessional things. Daniela laughed quietly, shaking her head. You're losing your mind, she told herself. Absolutely losing it. It felt good, though. Cathartic. Like releasing pressure from a valve before it exploded. She'd delete it in the morning. Right now, she needed to email Rachel the presentation file. Daniela attached the document, typed a quick message to Rachel asking for a proofread, and hit send. Then she shut down her computer, grabbed her bag, and headed for the elevator, already fantasizing about her bed. She rode down to the parking garage, humming tunelessly, completely unaware that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her professional life. What Daniela had forgotten, in her sleep-deprived state, was that Sterling Media's email system had an automatic routing protocol. Any work documents sent after hours were flagged for immediate supervisor review as part of their quality control process. It was designed to catch errors, prevent leaks, and maintain standards. And Nathan Cross, as Chief Marketing Officer, received automatic copies of all flagged documents from his department. At 2:47 a.m., while Daniela was driving home fantasizing about sleep, Nathan's phone pinged with a notification. He was still in his home office, nursing a whiskey and reviewing contracts, when he saw the email alert from Daniela Rivers. Subject, Quarterly Presentation for Review Attachment, Q4R Marketing Strategy. Final.docs. He opened it, expecting to see nothing unusual. Just another employee being thorough, which he appreciated. He started reading through the presentation. It was exceptional as he'd expected from her. The data was comprehensive. The creative concepts were innovative. The formatting was flawless. She really was talented. Then he scrolled to the last page and everything changed. Nathan read the words once, then again, then a third time, his heart rate accelerating with each pass. She wanted to run her hands through his hair. She fantasized about him pushing her against his office wall. She couldn't make eye contact in meetings because of how he affected her. A slow smile spread across his face. All this time, he'd been convinced his attraction to her was one-sided. He'd kept his distance, maintained strict professionalism, because she was his employee and the power dynamic made any approach inappropriate. He'd noticed the way she nervously adjusted her glasses when he spoke to her, the way she'd blush when he complimented her work. But he'd assumed it was just awkwardness, not mutual attraction. He'd been so careful, so controlled. And meanwhile, she'd been fantasizing about him too. Nathan leaned back in his chair, rereading her confession for the 4th time. This changed everything, but he needed to be smart about this, needed to handle it correctly. He picked up his phone and started typing a message, then deleted it, started again, deleted again. Finally, he settled on something simple. The morning after, Daniela woke up Friday morning with sunlight streaming through her curtains and a smile on her face. She'd slept like the dead, that deep, dreamless sleep that comes after finishing something important. Rolling over, she grabbed her phone from the nightstand and squinted at the screen. 17 a.m. Her heart stopped. She had 17 missed notifications, 12 emails, 3 texts from Rachel, 2 from her mom asking about dinner Sunday, and 1 email that made her blood turn to ice. From Nathan Cross. Subject, Quarterly Presentation for Review. Her hands started shaking before she even opened it. Why would he email her directly about a presentation review? He usually just forwarded feedback through department channels. She tapped the message with a trembling finger. The words blurred together as panic seized her chest. Additional content. Honest conversation. My office, 9 a.m. No, she whispered. No, 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 please no. She threw off her blankets and lunged for her laptop, nearly tripping over the pile of laundry she'd been ignoring all week. Her fingers fumbled with the password 3 times before she got it right. Email. Sent folder. Last night's message to Rachel. She clicked it open. No attachment. What? She refreshed the page. Checked her sent items again. Searched her entire outbox. The presentation file she'd meant to send Rachel was nowhere, which meant she'd sent it somewhere else. Her stomach dropped like a stone into an abyss. She opened her document folder with mounting dread, found the presentation file and scrolled to the last page. There it was. Every mortifying word of her late-night confession, right there at the bottom of what should have been a professional document. Personal note. Delete before sending. She hadn't deleted it. She'd sent the whole thing directly into the automatic review system, which meant Nathan had received it, had read it. Had read every single word about wanting to mess up his hair and pull his tie loose with her teeth. Daniela made a sound somewhere between a whimper and a groan, burying her face in her hands. I'm going to be fired. I'm going to be fired and blacklisted, and I'll have to move to another city and change my name. Her phone buzzed. Rachel. Girl, where's the presentation? I waited up, but you never sent it. You okay? She couldn't even respond. What would she say? Sorry. I accidentally sent my explicit sexual fantasy about our boss to our boss instead of sending you the file. Another notification. Her calendar alert meeting with Nathan Cross. 9 a.m. It was 8:34. Daniela launched herself toward her closet, pulling out clothes with shaking hands. Professional. She needed to look professional, like someone who definitely didn't write inappropriate confessions about her supervisor. She settled on navy pants and a cream blouse, conservative and boring and safe. Her reflection in the mirror looked terrified. Dark circles under her eyes from too many late nights. Auburn curls refusing to cooperate. Lipstick applied with an unsteady hand. You can do this, she told her reflection, trying to sound confident. You'll explain it was a mistake, apologize profusely, offer to resign if necessary. It's fine. Everything is fine. Everything was absolutely not fine. The drive to the office passed in a blur. She kept rehearsing what she'd say, but every version sounded worse than the last. Her hands were clammy on the steering wheel. Her heart was trying to beat its way out of her chest. She arrived at 8:52, parked in her usual spot, and sat in her car for 3 minutes trying to remember how to breathe. The office was already bustling with Friday morning energy. People gathered around the coffee maker, laughing about weekend plans. The marketing team clustered near the windows, reviewing something on someone's tablet. Everything was so aggressively normal while Daniela's entire world was imploding. She kept her head down, made a beeline for her desk, and tried to become invisible. Daniela! Rachel appeared beside her, concern written across her face. I've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, Daniela lied, her voice coming out too high. Just didn't sleep well. Rachel wasn't buying it. What happened? Did something go wrong with the presentation? Something like that. Daniela couldn't meet her eyes. I can't really talk about it right now. Okay, but if you need anything... Rivers. Nathan's assistant Thomas appeared at her desk. He was a polished man in his 50s who'd been with the company for decades and had perfected the art of revealing nothing with his expression. Mr. Cross is ready for you. Daniela felt like she might throw up. Now? It's only 8:57, he said as soon as you arrived. Thomas's face remained professionally neutral, but she could swear she saw a flicker of sympathy in his eyes. She stood on legs that felt like water. Smoothing down her blouse with clammy palms, Rachel gave her an encouraging squeeze on the shoulder, but it didn't help. The walk to Nathan's office felt like a march to the gallows. Every step took forever and happened too fast simultaneously. People glanced at her as she passed, and she wondered if they somehow knew, if her humiliation was written across her face. Nathan's office was at the corner of the floor, all glass walls and minimalist furniture that screamed success and power. Through the transparent walls, she could see him at his desk, head bent over some document, pen in hand. She knocked softly on the doorframe. He looked up, and those gray eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak for entirely different reasons than fear. "Daniela, come in, close the door." She obeyed, her hand shaking slightly as she pulled the glass door shut. There was a button that frosted the walls for privacy. Nathan pressed it, and suddenly they were isolated from the rest of the office, cocooned in translucent white. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. She sat on the edge of the seat, back rigid, hands clasped so tightly in her lap her knuckles were white. "Mr. Cross, I need to apologize. What you read in that document was completely inappropriate and unprofessional, and I take full responsibility. It was late, I was exhausted, and I made an inexcusable error in judgment. If you want my resignation, Daniela." He held up one hand, stopping her mid-panic. "Stop." She closed her mouth, heart hammering. Nathan leaned back in his chair, studying her with an expression she couldn't read. He looked different this morning, still impeccably dressed in a slate gray suit, but there was something in his eyes, something warmer than his usual professional demeanor. "First," he said, his voice calm and measured, "the presentation itself was excellent. Genuinely some of the best strategic work I've seen from this department. You should be proud of it." She blinked. Thank you. Second, I want you to understand that I'm not angry. I'm not offended. And I'm certainly not going to fire you for what was clearly a private note you never intended anyone to see." Relief flooded through her so intensely she felt dizzy. "You're not?" "No." He paused, and something shifted in his expression. "But I do need to address what you wrote." The relief evaporated, replaced by fresh mortification. "Please don't. Can we just pretend it never happened? I swear it will never affect my work. I'll be completely professional. Was it true?" The question hit her like a physical blow. "What?" Nathan stood, moving around his desk with slow, deliberate steps. He perched on the edge, directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "Cedar and bergamot and something uniquely him. What you wrote," he said softly. "About wanting to run your hands through my hair? About fantasizing when I say your name? About wanting me to kiss you until you can't remember anything else?" He paused, his eyes never leaving hers. "Was it true?" Daniela's mouth went dry. She could lie. She should lie. But looking into those gray eyes, she found she couldn't. "Yes," she whispered. Every word. Something dangerous flickered across his face. "How long?" "What?" "How long have you felt this way?" She swallowed hard. "Since your second week here. You stayed late reviewing the Branson campaign, and I brought you coffee because I was working late too. You looked surprised that anyone had noticed you were still there, and you smiled at me, really smiled, and I just—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "I know it's inappropriate. You're my boss. There's a power dynamic. I never would have acted on it. Because of the power dynamic," he repeated slowly, "not because you didn't want to." She didn't know how to answer that. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching her face. Then he did something that shocked her completely. He smiled. Not his professional smile, but something genuine and slightly vulnerable. "Daniela, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me." He leaned forward slightly. "Do you know how many times I've rewritten emails to you because my first drafts were too personal? How many meetings I've sat through barely hearing a word because I was watching you present and thinking about how brilliant you are? How often I've had to stop myself from finding excuses to come to your desk just to talk to you?" Her heart stopped. "I don't understand. I'm saying the attraction isn't one-sided." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "I'm saying I've been keeping my distance specifically because I didn't think you felt the same way. Because crossing that line with an employee who wasn't interested would be an abuse of power." Daniela stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. "You're attracted to me?" "Dangerously so." He ran a hand through his hair, and she realized it was a nervous gesture. Nathan Cross, always composed and controlled, was nervous. "But there are complications we need to consider." "The company policy," she said. "Reality crashing back in, among other things." He moved back to his chair, putting distance between them as if he needed it to think clearly. "Sterling Media has strict rules about supervisor-subordinate relationships. If we pursue this, there will be consequences." "Like what?" "At minimum, One of us would need to transfer to a different department. More likely, one of us would need to leave the company entirely. He met her eyes. And I won't ask you to sacrifice your career for this. You're too talented and you've worked too hard. Something warm bloomed in her chest at his protectiveness. What if I'm willing to take that risk? Are you? His gaze was intense. Really think about it, Daniela. Your career is just taking off. You have a future here. Is a relationship with me worth giving that up? Especially when we don't even know if this thing between us would work? She should say no. The smart thing, the safe thing, was to walk away, keep her job, keep building her career, but looking at him, seeing the hope and fear mixed in his expression, feeling the pull between them that had been growing for months, she found she didn't want to be smart. What if we didn't have to decide right now? She heard herself say. He tilted his head. What do you mean? What if we just explored this? Carefully. Outside of work. Her confidence grew as she spoke. We could date, get to know each other without the office dynamic. See if there's really something here worth the risk. And if there is, then we figure out the logistics. Nathan was quiet, considering. That's still against policy. Only if someone finds out. She couldn't believe these words were coming out of her mouth. Daniela Rivers, who followed every rule, who never colored outside the lines. I'm not saying we broadcast it. I'm saying we give ourselves a chance to figure out if this is real. A slow smile spread across his face. Are you suggesting we have a secret relationship, Ms. Rivers? The way he said it, with that hint of amusement and heat, made her stomach flip. I'm suggesting we see where this goes, discreetly. He stood again, came around the desk. But this time he didn't stop until he was close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. If we do this, he said quietly, we do it with rules. Complete professionalism at work. No one can know. No special treatment. No letting this affect business decisions. Can you handle that? Can you? She challenged. His laugh was low and warm. Fair point, he extended his hand. All right, Daniela Rivers. Let's see where this goes. She put her hand in his, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers, the slight calluses on his fingers, the way his hand completely engulfed hers. One more thing, he said, not letting go. Tonight, dinner. Somewhere far from here where no one from the office goes. I want to do this right. Her smile was genuine for the first time all morning. That sounds perfect. 7 o'clock. I'll text you the address. He released her hand slowly, reluctantly. Now get back to work before people start wondering why you're in here so long. She stood, feeling lighter than she had in hours, and walked to the door. Before opening it, she turned back. Nathan? Yes? For what it's worth, I think you're worth the risk. His expression softened into something that made her heart ache in the best way. Ask me again in a few months. See if you still think so. She left his office with her head held high, ignoring the curious glances from colleagues who'd watched her walk in looking terrified and walk out looking radiant. Rachel caught her at her desk. What happened? Are you okay? I'm perfect, Daniela said, and she meant it. Everything's going to be perfect. What she didn't see was Marcus Chen from accounting watching her from across the floor, his eyes narrow with suspicion. He'd noticed how long she'd been in Nathan's office. He'd seen the way she smiled when she left, and Marcus Chen had a very specific talent for noticing things other people wanted to keep hidden. When secrets surfaced, the next 3 weeks felt like living in two different worlds. At work, Daniela was the consummate professional. She arrived on time, contributed thoughtfully in meetings, maintained appropriate distance from Nathan, and threw herself into her projects with focused intensity. When he passed her desk, she offered polite nods. When they crossed paths in the break room, their conversation stayed firmly within safe territory. Weekend plans spoken in vague terms, weather observations, neutral comments about upcoming campaigns. But outside those walls, everything was different. Their first dinner had been at a small Italian restaurant 2 towns over, tucked into a corner booth where candlelight softened the angles of Nathan's face and made his eyes look more silver than gray. They'd talked for 4 hours straight, conversation flowing like they'd known each other for years instead of months. He told her about growing up with 3 sisters who taught him to respect women by mercilessly mocking him whenever he didn't. She told him about her father leaving when she was 12 and how her mother worked 2 jobs to keep Daniela in good schools. The Second date was a hiking trail outside the city, where Nathan admitted he wasn't actually outdoorsy but wanted to try something she loved. She'd laughed when he complained about the incline, then felt her breath catch when he'd steadied her across a stream, his hand warm and strong on her waist. The third date was at his apartment, a sophisticated space of clean lines and dark woods and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He'd cooked for her, actual homemade pasta that he'd learned from his Italian grandmother, and they'd ended up on his couch with her legs draped over his lap, talking until sunrise painted the sky pink. They hadn't slept together yet. There were kisses, deep and urgent and full of promise, but Nathan always pulled back before things went too far. "When we cross that line," he'd murmured against her lips during their last date, "I want you to be absolutely certain. No doubts, no fears about the job, nothing but us." It was maddening and sweet and made her want him even more. At work, she maintained her mask flawlessly, or so she thought. On a gray Monday morning, Daniela was reviewing metrics for the upcoming product launch when Marcus Chen appeared at her desk. She didn't know him well. He worked in accounting, kept to himself mostly, had a reputation for being brilliant with numbers but awkward with people. "Daniela, right?" He pushed his wire-rimmed glasses up his nose, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "That's right. Marcus, isn't it? From accounting?" "Yeah?" He glanced around, then leaned in slightly. "Listen, I wanted to give you a heads up. People are talking," her stomach clenched.
Talking about what?
"About you and Mr. Cross." He said it casually, but she caught the calculation in his expression. "I've noticed you've been in his office a lot lately, staying late on the same nights he does, leaving the parking garage around the same time." Daniela forced her face to remain neutral, even as panic clawed at her chest. "We work in the same department, Marcus. It's not unusual for us to coordinate on projects or work similar hours during busy periods." Sure. He nodded, but his tone suggested he didn't believe a word. "I'm just saying appearances matter. And if I've noticed other people might have too. You seem like a nice person. I'd hate to see you get caught up in something that could damage your career." There was something off about his concern, something that felt more like a threat wrapped in friendly advice. "I appreciate you looking out for me," she said carefully, "but there's nothing inappropriate happening. Mr. Cross is my supervisor. That's all." Marcus studied her for a long moment, then shrugged. "If you say so. Just thought you should know." He walked away, leaving Daniela with ice in her veins. She immediately pulled out her phone, typing quickly under her desk. "We need to talk. Someone's suspicious." Nathan's response came within minutes. "My car. Lunch, 12:30. The hours until lunch crawled by. Daniela went through the motions of her morning, but her mind was racing. How much had Marcus actually seen? Who else might have noticed? Were they being too careless? At 12:30, she slipped out to the parking garage, finding Nathan already waiting in his car in the far corner, away from cameras and foot traffic.